Thank you very much for letting me spend a little time with you. I appreciate your interest in these studies. I've titled this study, #Think Souls, but it really is part of a larger series that is available on this YouTube channel that is entitled, If I Could Start Over Again. I encourage you to look at the other videos in the series. There are some Bible studies that talk about the importance of establishing an identity for the church, thinking about the role of each member, how to renew ministry in the local church. But specifically, there's a mention of 7 things that I would do if I could start over again in ministry. Very quickly, those things are develop a personal relationship with every member and also with all of those that come to visit, all of those that we have contact with. The second thing, and what we're going to be talking about in this series of 3 videos, is the importance of evangelism, to have a great evangelism program. I would also have a good program for contact, for visitation, for maintaining contact with those that come to visit us and also with members. The fourth thing that I would pay close attention to is discipleship, especially through the educational classes. The fifth, fellowship, especially spontaneous fellowship. The sixth, making certain when we assemble for worship that there's something meaningful and meaty and worth coming to. And finally, not the last thing, but probably the first thing, I would cap all of that with prayer. The purpose of these 3 videos is to think specifically about what it would take in a local church to put evangelism front and center. What would it take to help a local church think souls? We're going to talk about that in the 3 lessons that are a part of the evangelism focus as I think about what I would do if I could start over again. When I talk about thinking souls, #Think Souls, I'm talking about soul consciousness. I'm talking about helping members and all of those who want to participate and will participate think souls every day, 24/7, everywhere they go, everyone they see, that they see souls. Seeking souls is of no value if we do not see those souls when they show up. Someone says, well, I'm seeking souls. Jesus came to seek and to save those that were lost. Well, we may be seeking, but if we can't see the ones who cross our path, then the seeking is of no value. Seeking and saving souls requires an intermediate step, and that is our ability to think souls, our ability to see souls. And so we begin to think about the problems of the church, and we think about our need to grow, we think about our desire to grow, and we are here to heal souls. The church is called to solve spiritual problems more than physical problems. Well, why should we talk about this? Why am I one who you would want to hear talk about this? Let me tell you just a little bit of my story, a brief personal introduction about how I learned over 50 years of ministry to see souls, to think souls, to be committed to reaching souls, to facilitate evangelism in the local church, to facilitate mission work that reaches souls so that I can talk to you about the multitudes. My story did not begin with an intense passion for souls, but I think I can tell you honestly today that my passion is souls. My passion is focused in heaven, in eternity. I stood at the front doors of church buildings where I was working and wept. In one place in 6 years, a new township around us grew into a community. 100,000 people moved within 6 miles of our building in a township that was 6 by 6. How do we reach the multitudes? Well, in that place, the answer was buses. That was 50 years ago. And so we went from about 250 to almost 500 using buses. But that really did not help us evangelistically. I'll say more about that in a moment. Then I moved to another city, and we began again. And in that particular work, we doubled. In fact, we almost tripled. 1/3 people in a metropolitan area. How can we make a difference in the lives of those people? And so a church of 150 tripled to 450 in just over 10 years. How did we do it? Think souls. We had an evangelistically focused event at least monthly. We were soul conscious. Had 250 baptisms in 10 years, new mission works, and the members were simply asked to bring their friends, bring their neighbors, help us find people. And people came, all kinds of people came. Having a worship service on a simpler level was not just necessary because we wanted to have a youth service. We had to do it because the building was too full. We had to have people who would be willing to go to an alternate service. We had to start a Spanish service in the basement. If you can speak Spanish, please go to that service. And then I moved again and I began to work in another church, and that church doubled in 9 years. And for the last 10 years, I've been working in mission work in Latin America, and always focused on converting, teaching, preparing, training nationals, helping the gospel get a foothold, training indigenous people who will take the gospel to their own neighborhoods and their own cities and their own nations, developing national leaders, so that over the last 10 years, conservatively, we have had between 20,000, perhaps as many as 30,000 baptisms. So I want to think with you about three things that are essential in this process of thinking souls. The first thing I want to say, the subject of this first video about evangelism, making evangelism the primary focus of the local church, is that we are in most of our churches going to have to make a 180-degree turnaround. Not only as a church, but as individuals. We're going to have to change. We're going to have to change our way of thinking. We're going to have to change our goals. We're going to have to change how we invest our time. We're going to have to change our planning model. We're going to have to change our understanding of ministry, because the church has one goal. Are we going to deal with children? Yes, for the purpose of saving them and keeping them saved. Are we going to have contact with non-Christians, an event for non-Christians? Yes, because we want them to be saved and we want to help them stay saved. Are we going to be involved in mission work? Yes, because we want to save people and help them stay saved. Are we going to have a youth program? Certainly, because we want to save our youth and keep them saved. Are we going to have fellowship and worship and small groups and classes? Yes, but the focus is going to be to help find people, seek people, see people, save people, and keep them saved. Every time I preach, I'm going to be preaching, recognizing that of those who are in the audience for the first time, those who may be visiting us and who may never return, this is their chance. This is perhaps the only opportunity that they will have to hear the gospel. And so that focus on souls, that focus on saving souls, that focus on keeping souls saved, that focus on discipleship, having an effort that is well organized, that helps us reach out, and every member is thinking souls, praying about souls, thinking about it, meditating about it, and constantly focused upon it. Because we are God's children, we recognize as a part of God's body that we are the ones who are responsible for it. And so this is not something that we can professionalize. This is not something that we can institutionalize. It's not something that we can leave to the work of other people. We, as God's people, have been called to declare the truth. This is what you must believe. And that was my focus and is my focus as I make trips to the mission field, as I think about my years in ministry, as I think about my experience in preaching, that every week, every class, every sermon, every small group, every personal conversation, we're going to be focused on the idea that the church exists, looking always to the work of ministry of the church. This is when God's ministry is our ministry. Too often, as I look at local churches, our ministry is not God's ministry. It's a lot of fun to be with other Christians. It's fun to share times of recreation, enjoyable activities. It's fun to serve together. But if the end result is not saving and keeping saved, let's be clear about what's happening. If the activity is not directly related to saving and keeping saved, that activity is really not ministry. What happens when an eldership commits to contacting 150 Christians who still live in the community but have for some reason or another fallen away? The church grows from 150 to 350 over the next 10 years. Evangelism is always important. Preaching is important. Over 100 were baptized in the next 5 years. The church was challenged to work according to gifts. We had a pizza party, a precise inventory of the zeal and zest available. Everyone in the church signed up for a work, in a class, in a small group. Everyone belonged. You could not be a part of the church without touching the rest of the body. You could not come and visit the church without touching the rest of the body. Every member who was absent on a Sunday was contacted within 24 to 36 hours. 4 teams of 10 people were meeting in rotation every Sunday evening. Every visitor was contacted within 24 to 36 hours. May I challenge your understanding? Evangelism is not the work of individual Christians. The Great Commission is plural. It does not say each one of you go. It says all of you go. Evangelism is the work of the body. Keeping people saved is the work of the body, each according to the gifts that God has given. So Ephesians 4 makes very clear that the work of leaders is to equip the saints, that's the members, for the work, singular, of ministry. Singular. Sometimes we talk about the ministries of the church and the works of the church. And I want to challenge you to think about, yes, there are ways in which we minister and serve other people. There are a variety of ways that we can be involved in the lives of other people. But ultimately, biblically, if we're going to put evangelism front and center and be the church that God has called us to be, fulfilling God's eternal purpose to bring people under the umbrella of the Lordship of Jesus, Ephesians chapter 1, Ephesians chapter 4, we're going to have to learn that not everything that we call evangelism is evangelism. Not everything we call ministry is ministry. The tool is not the evangelism. We did bus work. We went from 250 to over 450 consistently, but there was too little evangelism. Much of ministry is not evangelism. Much of what we do in missions is not evangelism. And so I come back and I say again, the first point that we're making, in order to put evangelism front and center, we're going to have to make a 180-degree turnabout. Something has to change of our thinking, our goals, our time investment, our method of planning. May God help us as we strive to think together. What would we do if we could start again in a local church? What does it mean for us to think souls? May God bless us as we contemplate and pray about how to fulfill the Great Commission in the local church.